This conference will now be recorded.
What you have to bring to us. Guys, just so you know, before we get started, I'm just going to kind of introduce myself, and then I'll bring Glenn in, as we will start right at about 8:02. Give everything over to Mark. The coaching team and the athlete development team have been working closely together. I'm sure you guys have heard of the Combine. We will give you more information that'll come out on the weekend. The OPFL is going to be running a virtual Combine on June the 5th. As well, we're also going to have our first ever coaching symposium with the U Sports different teams, and we're really looking forward to that day. Just so you know, we've launched ENK. Some of you may or may not know, and all the video will be taking place right there. So if you've gotten any information on ENK, let us know. If you know of any players that can't sign up with a team for whatever reasons, Eric Kajaks Communications, which is my company, is sponsoring a team this year, and so we will definitely have kids who maybe don't have a team in the OPFL that want to participate in that combine. So all that stuff will go out on the weekend, but I'm sure some of you have heard of it, or if you haven't, that's what's on deck. And Glenn's done a great job of recruiting the schools, and we've got a great team that meets tomorrow night or Thursday night that is working on what we're going to be presenting. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll turn it over to Glenn to introduce our speaker tonight and just give you some idea what the coaching team is doing.
Thanks, KJ. Again, really happy to have Coach Mark Surya on tonight to speak offensive philosophy and stuff like that. I've had the privilege to coach with Mark with Team Ontario a couple of times. He's got a tremendous offensive mind. He's been around, Coach. I mean, you coached at Laurier. I think you coached at Toronto. You've coached Team Ontario. You've also now at Guelph. Did I miss a spot at all, Coach, or is that all of them?
No, that's all of them, luckily.
Yeah, he's a great mind, a great football guy, great with the kids. Like I said, it was a real privilege to coach with him at Team Ontario, and excited to listen to him speak tonight. But as KJ mentioned, we are trying to do a weekly coaches, kind of a coaches clinic or coaches seminar for guys, both offensively and defensively, to keep the coaches involved. And then we're doing some great things with the athletes as well. We have our coaches recruiting fair coming up in June 6th, where right now I think we have 22 youth sport coaches that are going to take part in that. We're also going to add another dynamic to it where we're going to ask them to bring a player with them as well to speak a little bit about their program, so the players get an opportunity to hear directly from a player that's involved. So we have some great things going on, and we thank you guys for joining in, and I hope you enjoy the session tonight.
All right, I guess I'll get started here. Thanks for having me, guys. I'll just to start off, if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or at the end, I'll leave about 10 to 15 minutes for any questions that you might have. It's obviously in a short period of time, you can't cover everything you want. So hopefully at the end, if there's any outstanding questions, we can cover them. I took a little bit of a different approach with this one, just thinking back. I actually started my coaching career with the Cambridge Lions. So that was an awesome situation where we had a really good team, a couple CFL future offensive linemen. So I got to start off my coaching career pretty lucky and take a lot of losses to Glenn from Essex, which was a good experience. But starting out and creating a book or thinking about being a coordinator of some kind is a little bit different than some of the other talks I've seen. So most of them are X's and O's focused, and most of them are technique focused. So tonight's will be a lot about scheme and just how to build your own book, and kind of where I came from, some of my experiences, and how I like to think a little bit about the game of football. So usually they suggest starting off with just a bit of a background, and the only reason I bring this page up is because it kind of speaks to how I look at football now and where my influences come from. So I played at Queen's University under Coach Pat Shan, who brings a pro-style system, and he actually just won the Mania Cup last year with the Calgary Dinos, but a lot of it is a downfield pro-style passing system. And so that's what I knew from my playing career. And I was lucky enough to start to work with Coach Faulds at Laurier, who came from the Western background, which is a lot different in terms of a power run, heavy play action, down the field passing, but a little bit differently. And so I started to look at offense differently, just because to play in that pro style system, you need a really strong quarterback presence. Okay, and so some of the things I was used to doing, we didn't have success early on just because you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And so that's kind of where I've come to now, where it's full circle, trying to figure out what fits myself, but also fits what the players you have. And that's the biggest thing I can say is try to fit the scheme you have to the players that you have on the roster, not the other way around. So, you know, one season we might be a heavy double tight system just based on the players we have. We have a great 6th or 7th offensive lineman. You want to get them involved. Maybe you're a little bit shorter on skill players, or if the quarterback is brand new, it really simplifies some of the reads. So those are some of the things I'll talk about today. And so the 3 main things we're going to touch on are just a system, or how we run the system here at Guelph, and some of the things I've run previously. Just talking about formational and personnel flexibility. What does that mean? And then really from a coordinator's perspective, how do you partition your information? We're really lucky at the university level where I basically have a coach and an assistant at every position, whether it's offensive line or running backs or quarterbacks. But I know from coaching with Cambridge, you don't always have that. And so you're often coaching multiple positions at once. And so from a practice perspective, you can't split up the backfield with the receivers. So how do you still practice in a way that fits the team that you have or the system that you have? Because you can't practice the way you would in the pros or the way you would at university as you can in community ball. And so some of the tips and tricks that I picked up were, how do you want to coach it so that you can still partition the information to the different groups and you're still really able to focus on those things. And then really talking about scheme versus technique, which is the biggest thing I can say as a play caller. Okay, so when you're in the flow of the game, I think one of the big mistakes that first-time play callers, or even now, you know, calling plays for a couple of years here, what you can fall into is this trap of looking backwards. So in a game, whether a play doesn't work or not, you have to really know right away whether it was a scheme error, which is on the coordinator at that point, where you can't call a particular play against the way the defense is playing it, or is it a technique issue where you can go back to it? I mean, obviously players are going to make mistakes during the game, but I think we get too involved in the emotion of the game and saying, well, we can't run this, it didn't work, you know, in the first quarter, where really it's an issue of technique rather than scheme. And so you can go back to it, or you can set it up, or you can really look at it from a different perspective. And so that's where, as a coordinator, your eye needs to be a little bit different, where you always need to be ready for the next play. If it's a 2nd and long, what am I ready to call? If it's a 2nd and 5, 2nd and short, what do I want to go to? And how do you weave all of these plays together so that you're running a cohesive offense, rather than, you know, on 1st down we'll run, on 2nd and long I'm true drop back, and you get into that pattern where the defense, you know, whoever you're calling against can really start to drop some exotic blitzes, bring a lot of pressure based on the kind of pattern that you fall into. Okay. And so when we start with the system, we're a concept driven system at the University of Guelph and everywhere I've coached. And so what I mean by that is we'll look at concepts of routes or concepts of runs and call them by that particular concept. So we'll give each one a name rather than the numbered system, you know, 34 lead, or even you know, using numbered routes or the route tree. So 623 is a big Laurier pass play where it's a corner, an out, and a slant. And so we use concepts here, which allows you to do a couple different things. So we're not going to touch a huge amount of time on the pass game. So I just wanted to give you an example of something you could scale down depending on the age group you're at. So here, all the things we teach are concept driven. All the plays have a name associated with it, and there's no necessarily rhyme or reason. But it allows you to then signal plays in from the sidelines rather than use the wristband. And one of the things that I've found really effective is if you have your talent level isn't as good as the other team, for example, one of the things you can play around with is pace, or playing no huddle and really speeding things up. So using the tagging signals from the sideline allow you to play much faster. All of our runs will be tagged either right or left, or strong or weak. So the strength would be to the right in this case, the weak side would be to the left. And obviously right or left is self-explanatory. And then here for protections, all of our pass concepts are double tagged. We don't really run a ton of mirrored stuff unless it's a quick game. Even then we would use different tags for different sides. But in this case at the bottom, you know, we can call it 61 cross. This is what we use at Team Ontario just to simplify it. And this is a full field pass concept, we would call it. So 61, obviously it's a 6-man protection. The tailback goes away from the protection side or from the call side. So we would use odd numbers to designate that the left side is actually the front side of the pass concept, and that would mean the right side is the back side of the concept. So without getting too much into it, 61 cross is a simple out-go concept to the boundary. If the will expands, you have a crosser to replace. So we're going to read this from left to right. Okay, we're always going to protect the quarterback's backside. The one just tells the tailback they're going to the right. The one tells the quarterback he's looking to the left. And the receivers also know which side is the front side and which side is the back side. Okay, as you get up into the ranks, you can start to change the tags because you can change which routes you want to run. So if we're at Guelph, for example, this is 61 couch curl iPod flat. So 61 still stays the same in terms of front side and back side, but the couch is the two-man route concept to the boundary there, the X and the R. And so what you can do as you get older is you can change the route concept, the two-man route concept to the boundary there, and change it to example, whether it's a bang concept, the out from the X and the corner from the R. But really what you're doing is you're just like Lego, you're snapping on different routes to fit the concept you want. And so when we talk about double tags, that's all we're saying in a past sense, is that you're able to change the way you want to call things. But one of the things you're going to want to do as a play caller is coach to the level that you're at. So if you're in high school kids or even just starting out, junior varsity or even below, you don't want it to be too wordy just because the quarterbacks have a little bit of trouble with that. So this would just be, a 61 cross and everybody would know where to go. You lose the ability to snap on different routes, but you don't necessarily need that at that age. And so this is just something I'll touch on briefly. The pass game will be another huge thing that I'm sure somebody will touch on in this series. But this is just how we look at it from a university perspective at Guelph. Okay. We'll move on. Okay, so first thing I want to touch on is personnel. So depending on the place you're at, and if I have a team of 25 guys on offense, and if I'm coaching in the community, I want to make sure that everybody has a responsibility or everybody has some sort of role in the offense that you're coaching at. Once you get higher of your university levels and obviously some of the higher level varsity teams, it's just not a possibility once you get to playoffs or you get to championship level, and everybody understands you're not going to be able to involve everybody. But one of the things you can really do to keep people engaged is to change your personnel and who's in the game. So for example, Rangers are 4 wide receiver package, and the wide receiver there is a specific body type, but you can call something else and have 5 wideouts there, and you can change who the Z is on that particular personnel package. So all you're doing is getting everybody involved, and some of your younger guys or your weaker players might only be in 1 or 2 personnel packages, and you set it up so that they have to know everything associated with that package. But all you're doing is allowing people to be involved in the game planning process while still limiting the amount that you have to rely on them once you get into a game situation. Okay, so for example, if we're going to go Ranger, I might have my 5 best wide receivers out there. But if I want to go to a big personnel, what's a little bit more run heavy, I might say, first group big, my Z receiver will change, and it just keeps everybody involved in the offense. So one of the things that you can start to think about as a play caller is how do you get everybody involved so that, when it comes to special teams or when it comes to the game of football in general, everybody's involved while still accomplishing the goal of making sure you can have a competitive team, giving yourself the best chance to win, the team the best chance to win. And so personnel is one way to do that. But I think the important distinction is that who's in the game does not change how you line up. Okay. So what I mean by that is our formations here, the 2 on the right are our Ranger personnel or our 5 wideout packages. Okay. So I tell the 5 receivers that are in the game and I can align them however I want. On the left-hand side, it's the 3 wide receivers and a fullback or an H-back, we call it. But I can align them however I want and change it up. So I could still line up in something like a 5 spreads situation in the top right with a big personnel. It just would change who's lined up where. And that's where you can get some positional flexibility based on what you're getting. Okay, these are some of the calls we use. You can call them anything you want. There's no rhyme or reason behind them. We usually just designate who the 2 receiver side is in our 5 wideout package, and then we designate where the H-back goes in our fullback package. But this is another situation where you can play around with things and all that kind of stuff as you go along. Okay. Where I want to spend the most of my time is creating like a concept or something that you want to drive everything in your offense around. Okay, so one of the questions we always get at our level is, what type of offense do you run? Which is a very difficult thing to describe, because I think we're a multiple formation, multiple, personnel sets offense. But if we just start right at the beginning, I would say inside zone is a day one teach concept for us. And so the next series of plays, the next 15 or so that I'm going to show, or the 14 plays I'm going to show, are all based around this really simple concept of inside zone. And so when you only have 2 practices a week in the summer, and you're going to try to really focus on technique, and offensive line coaches always want more technique time, you're not going to have a lot of time to install brand new plays week after week, because your team won't run them well enough to be able to execute them in a game. So when you're at a community level, you really got to start to think, how do I make it more complex for the defense without overworking our guys from a mental standpoint to now play slow, can't fire off the ball, all those things. So we would start with a day one install. Trips right is the formation. Red just tells us we're running to the right, and doubles is an inside zone play. This is something we use at Team Ontario. From a pure scheme perspective, we're going to run a solo with the play side tackle on the right-hand side here. So I'll bring up a drawing tool. Hopefully we can give you a little bit more detail. So we're going to solo this, okay, with the end, and we're going to run a zone double up to the mic. And there's 2 ways you can call this, whether it's an ace to the mic, that's the combination between the center and the guard, or you can just call this guy the point. So there's a couple different ways you can call it. It doesn't matter essentially how you want to do it. You just got to be consistent with what you're going to do. And these 3 players on the front side will be doing the same thing for all the plays I'm going to show here in a second. So the sequence for the front side 3 will never change. Okay. This is a backside B between the backside tackle and the guard. And all that designates is that it's a combination zone block between these 2 working up to the will. And we have a stab or a backside cutoff on the quick. Okay. So this is a day one play that we would install. This is something that everybody, I'm sure, has some idea on how to run. We're going to run everything out of the pistol just for a little bit more detail. Pistol tells us our heels are at 8 yards, about 3 yards behind the quarterback, whose heels are at 5. And being in the pistol just lets the defense not get any idea in terms of being in a gun offset situation where they can now slant away from the tailback, because generally that's where the runs go. And also they know if it is an RPO of any kind, usually the pass concepts are to the backside. So staying in a pistol just allows you to be a little bit more flexible. It can go an inside zone to the H-back or an inside zone away from the H-back, okay? So this would just be a simple day one play. This is the one that you want to spend the most time on, and we'll start to evaluate from there, okay? One of the things you want to do as a play caller is, as soon as you line up, the defense will have a specific way they want to defend this formation, okay? So I would describe this as a 31, so 3 receivers to the field, 1 to the boundary. And anytime the fullback is in the game, the defense will have a specific rule in terms of how to defend it. So in this diagram I've drawn up here, this is a halfback rotate. So the backside DB has rotated over to play the number 3, and they've rotated the SAM to adjust to where the fullback aligns, okay? Now, as a play caller, you want to know kind of how they're defending you, because it does change the number of plays that are in your arsenal out of this formation set. And with some of the film I'll show you, not everybody aligns this way. In fact, only very few teams align this way. But what you're going to get in this situation, if you have a stud number 1 receiver, it's very difficult to help out on one-on-one pass coverage in this set. And so out of this situation, you might say, okay, I'm getting the best matchup for me. I can run all my one-on-one routes here, because we know the SAM has to allocate itself to where the fullback aligns, okay? And so what you're doing when you line up in a formation set, however you do it, is you immediately want to take a look at the defense and say, okay, based on how they're going to play us this week, this is what I think is a good option for us. Okay, and in a second, I'll show some of the film, and hopefully it'll give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. This is the second way to run the exact same play, just out of a spread set. So this would be spread, red double saw. Okay, just to go through some of the calls that we use. Spread tells us we're in a 5 wide receiver package. Red tells us we're running to the right. Doubles, like I just said, is going to be the inside zone play that we have. And saw just tells us that the slot is going to add to the weak side to now cut off the quick. Okay, and so it's the exact same play. The front side 3 are running the exact same thing. The back side 2 actually are running the exact same thing as well. We're just accounting for the quick in a different way. Okay, and so from a scheme perspective, when you're talking to your offensive line coach, you can say, look, for the first 4 days of practice, first 2 weeks, I want you to hammer down on inside zone technique, and we'll look at all the different ways they can align to us and talk about scheme that way, instead of really focusing on inside zone and wide zone and gap scheme and counters and all these different things. It's impossible to get good at it all. So you really want to focus on what you think fits your personnel best and have everything play off of that. So whether you're in a 2-back set or you're in a 5 wide set, you can still run that same inside zone. Okay, so give me a sec here. I'll share some of the film that I've brought out. We can take a look at some of the different ways the defense aligns to us. I know Rob Underhill's on the call, so he'll see some of the things that his team does that's a little bit different. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'll set it up here. This is a inside zone to the right. Set up here. So I'll pause that as we get set here. Okay, so right away, this is an inside zone to the right. We got 3 receivers to the field. But one of the things that Mac does really well is they'll keep their backside half on the backside. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. They're going to keep the Sam and splitting him between the number 3 and the tackle spot in this case. Okay, and they'll just keep the Sam and the Will on the same side. From a scheme perspective, though, if you look at it, we lose the one-on-one to the boundary here because they got a hash player. And if I can hopefully show the end zone cut here, what it means is from a scheme perspective, if I pause it, I can get the number 3 receiver to dig out the Sam, and now we are 7 for 7 in the box. Okay, so as a play caller, immediately, once you just call a simple inside zone play, you want to see the way the team wants to defend you. And this would be a situation where, okay, we want to run this play repeatedly, because anytime you get 7 players to defend 7 potential blockers, there will be a gap that's open. Okay, so I'll play it slowly here. I know there's a bit of delay. Inside zone to the right. 64 is going to work a combination with the right guard up to the middle linebacker there. The number 3 receiver is going to dig out the Sam. We're going to play this with a little bit of a run up to see if any blitzes are coming. So if I pause it right here, you can see just from a number scheme perspective, we got 1 for 1. We've got the combination in the middle, and the backside backer, you can see we're 2 for 2 on the backside with the H back and the tackle. And so no matter what happens here, if we press this double, 39's got a tough spot, whether he's going to fill the front side B gap, he's going to fill the backside A gap. From a scheme perspective, this is a play that you're going to be able to run multiple times. Our tailback does a bad job there of pressing the double there, which is a technique thing. But from a scheme standpoint, the way that Mac's defending this particular play, I feel pretty good about the numbers that we're getting. Okay, here's a different situation now where the H-back is on the front side. We've got the Sam. Anytime you've got a tight end in the game, again, defenses will have a different way to play the tight end because of where he's aligned. And so you just want to take a look at it. One of the things that I would see right away is that the Sam is in a 4x2 offset, which means 4 yards off the tight end and 2 yards within the line of scrimmage, which limits his ability to get out to that hook to curl zone if I was looking at a pass concept, okay? But here, we're just running inside zone to the right here. Again, we can see this guy needs to be the add player if we are going to slot add weak like I showed to respond for the quick. And all that means is he becomes the new force player, okay? And so this is what we're looking at here from a backside perspective. This is a simple inside zone again. And so we're a body on a body. And if you can see, the free man is the backside half there that I've allocated. And so some defensive coordinators will be really strong on when the offense adds to the line of scrimmage, we need to now add to the line of scrimmage as well. Here you can see, because it is a DB, they're not as aggressive to add. And so he is actually the free man in this scheme. And we get our tailback up to the second level. And in a perfect world, our X receiver there is able to pick off that half. But when you're looking at this from the booth or from the sideline, you're just seeing, okay, we got 7 individuals here. Once I start to add, what does this guy do? That's the most important thing when I'm taking a look at it. Okay, and so something simple like inside zone, the offensive lineman, in my experience, if you can give them looks that they're familiar with and they can fire off the ball and be aggressive, in my experience, it's much more effective than having to play, pass sets 40, 50 times a game. And so you can still accomplish some of the things in the pass game that I'll talk about in a second. But from this perspective, they're firing off the ball. All these are still zone doubles. We do a little bit of a different fold block on the backside just because of the way that he was aligned. But essentially, scheme-wise, we're adding in. We're going to cut block this end here. And because 38 or whatever this guy's number is, isn't aggressive to the add, he's now making contact, 8 or 9 yards downfield. And so from a caller's perspective, you're like, okay, I can store that one away in that formation. I like the looks I'm getting. I like the numbers I'm getting. That's a play that I can go to multiple times this game based on what I'm seeing. Okay. The next parts that we're going to talk about are a little bit different than maybe some of the things you've seen or some of the things that you have, but we'll start with that inside zone concept. Okay. The second one, I'm sure everybody has a version of this, is where we're now going to read the end. It's still inside zone. We're going to read the end. Great. We're going to pull and throw on an RPO if we get a crashing end. The only reason I put this one in there is one of the things you want to teach your offensive lineman, if you can, or talk to your offensive line coaches about, is this idea of a backside exchange. Okay, so what I mean is that a lot of defensive coaches now will say, with an open B gap here, guys, we're going to allow the quick to play and be the B gap defender, and we'll let the will exchange gap responsibilities with the quick and become the new C gap player. And so when the quarterback sees the quick heel line, he'll pull and have a will just sitting right there in his face. Okay, so one of the things that offensive coaches can do is play the Sift technique from the backside tackle, where you're actually going to just post down lateral to the line for 2 steps. And if the will expands away from you, we're just going to block right back on the quick. Okay, I just wanted to talk about that briefly because exchange is one of the answers that defensive coaches will have now, where some coaches, even without an open B gap, will still run the exchange to get to the A. But this is something we can tell offensive line coaches is I want to sift the backside. And so front side 3 still run that zone double. Backside 2, you're going to block the most dangerous 2 defenders out of these 3. And so one of the things you can use is a Sift technique, okay, from the tackle spot. One of the things as a coordinator you're going to tell the receivers is, on every RPO that you have, if you are on the front side of the run, you're an auto block. Okay, that'll simplify who has the route tag associated with it. Because receivers will often say, do I have the out? Do I not? I'm not sure. When you install it as a day 1 play, you just say, anytime you're on the front side of the run, you're blocking, all of the route tags are for the back side. Okay, and so this is something I'm sure all of you have or some version of this. And you can change how you want to read this. This is a midline give for us, which means the quarterback is actually going to clear and the tailback's just going to come straight downhill. And we're going to give the chance to read the quick. And we're often telling the quarterbacks to read the outside shoulder. If the outside shoulder is turned at all, we're going to pull and get depth. If the outside shoulder is still square and they're shuffling, we're going to give all day, every day, okay, just to be safe. Show you some examples of this in a second, but this one isn't necessarily that new. The thing I want to talk about next that kind of plays off this is this idea of a cross, okay? So all we're going to do, this is a zone slice concept that we can talk about. Again, I can't highlight this enough. We're still running inside zone up front, okay? So these 5 guys are running inside zone. But one of the things we can start to do to account for this unblocked end is rather than read them, we can now run a sub motion or a cross zone slice motion to dig out the quick, okay? And so this is where one of the things you're immediately gonna want to look at, it's still inside zone, but how does the defense defend this sub motion action, okay? And so teams will probably do a couple different things, or things that we look at from the booth. One, they can track it, we call it, where they just follow the number 3 receiver across, the Sam just tracks it across, okay? So a couple teams in our league do that, York and Laurier being 2 of the major ones. A team like Mac or a team like Western actually don't track it at all, and what they'll do is they'll keep the Sam on the front side and just bump this down, okay? And then they'll bump the Will out to account for the Y who might be slipping to the flat. And so depending on how teams want to play you, it'll change the route concept that you're going to want to call to the boundary based on how they play you, okay? In this situation, we're going to auto give, so that's why we don't give it a read call or anything associated with it. And so anytime you use the word cross, all that tells you is that the Y is going to go across the formation and block the quick inside out. Now, the matchup difference is pretty big. Usually this guy might not be a huge player, but in my experience, you don't need a huge guy here, because what you can tell him is, as long as we can make the quick go outside, perfect. That's all we need, which means as I work across the line of scrimmage, I want to stay tight to the offensive lineman so that if he wants to make the play, he's got to go right through me, okay? And in our league, they still allow cutting coming across the line, so that's another thing we can use. I know that might be mandated out of the game moving forward, so we'll have to come up with some different strategies. But you just want to use a little bit of motion, and from the offensive line perspective, you're still running the exact same play, okay? The only thing you're going to want to tell the center is if it's a bump team, you might want to bring the point out of the box or bring that first zone double to the Sam and the backside zone double to the Mike. It just depends on your preference. The other thing you can do is if they keep the Sam here, you can block them with the Will or with the number 2 receiver, sorry. So a couple different things I can show you here. I'll film in a second. Here's the example I showed where if they're just going to blitz the Sam or bring the Sam off the edge, you want to bring your number 2 receiver down to block him, and you can keep the same point call or the same zone doubles. And one of the things that you can alert for is if the tackle goes down and works the zone double and the Will goes away, you can stay heavy on this double and get movement downhill, okay? Because we know now the Y is going to block the quick. They're going to end up in the same gap, we call it. And so we would alert the line that on the backside, you could just stay on the double and get movement, okay? Some of those things we'll see on film in a second. But again, this is the same concept you're using, but from a play caller's perspective, you're going to give yourself a lot of different options based on how they defend a simple motion like this. And you're going to be able to use a lot of different things based on what you're seeing, okay? So I'm going to give us a second here just to take a look at some film. I know it's not the best sharing it over video, so hopefully you'll be able to show it. Okay, so here is a play where we are going to cross the line of scrimmage. We're actually going to line up in a bunch to the right side here, okay? So one of the things right away from the booth looking for, okay, great. We're 2 for 2. That's the half. That's the corner. Not a big deal. How are they going to play this bunch reduced formation with the Sam, the half, and the corner? And that'll tell you how they want to play us in this situation. Right away with a reduced set, you can see the DBs are playing this inside out bracket technique. And when I can play it across slowly, you can see the Sam here as the motion comes across, they're catching at that second level and not playing aggressive downhill. So we talk about formational flexibility. You can use unique formations. In this case, this is just a tight bunch. We're still running inside zone to the right, and we're able to still work down to the right-hand side here. Let's see if I can. Okay, I see your messages there, Robbie. Good. Okay, so let's see if I can just show the video a little bit bigger. So I'll give it a sec here. Hopefully get bigger here in a second. Okay, there we go. All right, so all we're doing here from a scheme standpoint, we got a tight bunch to the right-hand side. We can see the Sam, the half, and the corner who's not on the screen. Again, from an offensive line perspective, we're still running that zone double up to 39, still running the backside double at 40. 35's coming across the formation, blocking this weak side end. Okay, but right here, let's see if I can pause it. 33 here isn't able to fill or cross or play any of this sub motion because of the tight formation. We're able to block him. And if I run it through slowly here, hopefully you guys can take a look at this. There's just a massive gap available. Okay, and so what you're doing from a standpoint on offense is you're using formations to force the defense to communicate differently. Okay, and to say, okay, well, they're lined up in something different. How do I cover down? Where's 35? That's the fullback. If I'm the Sam, I know I've got him. Where do we go? Why are they tight? All this stuff. And in my experience, when defenses don't understand what's going on, they tend to play a bit more passive. And for our guys up front, we're just running an inside zone concept. We can fire off the ball. 99 here doesn't take on the block, so he actually avoids it, which just creates a massive gap for number 5 here to be able to run straight downhill. Okay, so one of the things you're doing is just letting the formation play with the defense a little bit, force them to cover down, and now you use the same thing in a different way. So here's an example of the 2-post technique I was talking about. Okay, right here in this setup, we know we're running and we're reading the end man on the line here. This is where it's a true zone read on the end, and we can pull or give based on that look. Okay, so 65 here is going to post down and sift the most inside two between the will and the end. And as he sees this exchange of responsibilities, he can then block back. And so whenever you get into a situation where both defenders are in the same gap, and some defensive coordinators this will be an auto call based on the formation in the front you're getting. So if you can teach him to sift the backside too, you're going to get a situation where there is no weak side B gap defender. Okay. And so something small like that, where you're still running inside zone, you're still being able to fire off the ball, you're just changing it a little bit, allows you to get downfield and play within the scheme of the offense without having to change too much. Okay, here's another situation where, again, we're running inside zone read. Okay, hopefully we'll get set up here in a second. So all we're doing here is we're a 23 bunch week. Okay, so we're going to get a will expansion here. Like I mentioned, Western doesn't change a ton in terms of their will and their Sam against us. Okay, and so right here, you're getting right away, even though it's a run, we're getting a back who's coming out and dropping based on the formation we get. So in this case, we're getting a true 6-man box where if we make the right decision, there's really no option for that the quarterback doesn't have here if he reads it out correctly, okay? This is what we would call a shitty mesh point here where the quarterback's already pulling it and you can see him pulling it down. I'll go from the end zone perspective. So here, we're running that same ace up to 21, backside. In this case, because the back is negative, we could actually stay hard on the double until we see who's coming back. But here, stay midline give. We're going to read that field side end to the left here. Okay. And so right here is decision-making time. And we get 2 of our offensive linemen getting heavy on the nose here. And so they should be actually working vertical rather than flat. Because if we are able to give this and get a second defender or a second offensive lineman up to the second level, you can start to see the gaps that are getting created. Either way here, quarterback decides to pull. It's a good redirect from 77. And now because the quarterback's made the wrong choice, we've given ourselves a difficult pass play to be able to work to, okay? So some of those things we're going to start to talk about, but from a play caller's perspective, you just want to see how the defense aligns to you, okay? Now, the thing that's exciting is you get to start to slip them to the flat. Here's just a simple play where you're running the same motion with the Y. So one of the things we always want to tell the receivers is to set up to signal to the defense, okay, look, he's in that triple threat position. I'm either going to chase or I might auto based on what the defense has told me. And as we work across the line of scrimmage, okay, how they adjust to this motion changes the type of tag I want to run with these 2 players. If it's a situation where I know the Sam chases, I'm going to run some sort of double pick concept to get this receiver open to the flat, which you'll see in a second. Okay. If it's a bump concept, you're actually going to want to use the run to your advantage because with this motion, it's hard to fit in the gaps and bump the linebackers at the same time. Okay. So really understanding how the defense defends you changes how you're going to call the game as you go throughout. I'll show you a couple of different options we have here. Okay, this is same thing, just different setup. We're running with the quick here, and then I know we're running a little bit out of time, so I'll cover the last few in a little quicker pace. But here, you're going to actually show the same sub motion, and we're going to fake it and end up back to the field in this case. And we're hoping that on teams that track, you're running this Sam around like a madman. One of the good things it does with teams that want to track is this guy can never blitz because you are moving that number 3 receiver around a ton. And so we're just running inside zone. This will be the first time we run it to the left in this case. Same rules apply for the offensive line, but you're playing around with how to do this in a quicker pace, okay? And you're able to change the motion from the wideouts to show a little bit of complexity. But from an offensive line, from a receiver perspective, it's all inside zone. It's still a midline give. You're still reading the end. You're just changing how it looks to the defense. Okay, so if I can show some of those things, that's when you start to have a little bit more fun in terms of how you want to manipulate the defensive fronts and how you want to manipulate the defense in general. So hopefully I can get to some of those. Okay, so here's an example here. We're playing Carlton in this case. Okay, we're going to bring this receiver across the formation, okay? So Carlton does not track at all, which means when number 9 works across the formation here, they're not bringing anybody else across with them, okay? And so from a Will's perspective, he sees run with an offensive lineman coming second level, so he has to fill that gap responsibility and at the same time figure out that it's a pass. And you can see we got 3 guys to the boundary here, and the quarterback is also running the space. And so, you know, you can set that up from the first quarter running just a simple inside zone with that cross technique and see that there's no one accounted for in the flat. Okay, so here, seeing it from the end zone cut, 43 is the guy that I want to see. How does he relate to this cross motion? And some defensive coordinators will say, okay, you're going to play it as is. So I want to bring the Sam off the edge and maybe replace him with the 44. When he crosses the formation, it really limits their ability to bring edge pressure if you account for this in your scheme technique. Okay, so here we're bringing him across. Nobody tracks him. Nobody comes across with him. And from 46's perspective, he sees run all the way. So 46 has to fill that. Otherwise, we're running right down B gap there. The end crashes. We get a good option now. There's a receiver open and a quarterback running to the flat. Okay, let's see. There's one more I wanted to show you. Okay, so one of the things you can also do when you're running your formation is just a simple motion going from 32 to 23. See how the defense reacts, and then we bring him back over. Okay, so we're bringing this receiver back to the field, and really, again, now we've established that Carlton does not like to change necessarily who's doing what or who's going where with that sub motion. From the booth perspective right here, if we're able to give this because he's too far upfield, this backer's trying to get to the flat and play the quarterback or the routes at the same time. There's no way 43 can fill in the run game. So one of the things that you have to do a little bit more time on is spending it with your quarterbacks to have them really understand the reads that they have. So right here, 9's coming across. Okay. 97 gets a bit too far upfield. If I pause it right here, this guy's playing the sub motion back to the flat. We have a huge gap in the run game to be able to run it right down that B gap because it's impossible for him to play the route and play the run at the same time, which is what this concept is based off of. Okay, and so all you want to do is use that motion to stress the defense, to get it so that the defensive corner can't play as many blitzes downfield, to do all those things and be formationally flexible. But from a scheme, from a technique standpoint, we're running inside zone. You're just changing where guys are going and how we're running it. But you can spend the 4 practices, get really good at moving guys up front, and that's where everything starts off of. Okay, here's an example of that fake sub motion I'm talking about. And so you want to get into a habit as a play caller to watch the defense rather than to watch your own guys. You're going to trust that at some point your guys will be able to execute. But here's a situation where I'm just watching the Sam. Okay, I can see the Sam running across. Now he tracks this flat pretty good. Okay, so right here in my head, if he's playing this at all, I know that it's either a run or a pass read from the quarterback perspective. And with the way the end's playing this, I think it was a give without even seeing how the quarterback tailback mesh exchange worked out. Okay, there's no way number 4 should be able to play the quarterback and also play the run at the same time if we're going off the read correctly from the quarterback tailback mesh. So right here, 4 shuffling, we should give this all day. And if I pause it right here, from a tailback's perspective, he's got A-gap cram, he's got bounce, he's got everything open here. Quarterback's getting a little greedy on the pull. He likes the motion, gets it to him in space, which is fine. But again, making the right choice is always the most important thing rather than being a little bit more aggressive in those situations because everything is predicated off making the right choice from the quarterback position. Okay. With the last few minutes before questions here, you can run a second level RPO too. This is kind of the next extension of that inside zone setup where we're going to run red doubles. The lock call tells us that the tackle is going to lock back on the quick. And now we're going to read that second level defender. And so if they play the run at all, in any zone scheme, generally the will has a hook to curl. And so we're going to look to replace that right away with this quick slant. The reason I like this combination is it's a good man and zone beater. But anytime you're running a second level RPO, it's only designed to attack right where the conflict defender should be going. Okay, so in this case, we're going to have an X run right to replace that. The will plays that at all. We're going to pull and throw right to where he is. Okay. Let's see here. And another thing you can start to do off the play action is short set it. You still run that fake red doubles. Everybody's still firing off the line. You're going to get some buy-in from the will and the mic. In this case, the tailback's responsibility is like a 60 protection. So in 60 protection, the tailback's got the will to outside or will to sky. The center's got the mic to the Sam in this case. So in this, we're just going to token fake the front side, have them work to the back side to pick up the will. And if for whatever reason nobody comes, then we'll check release to that under that's built into the divide call. This is 4 verticals, which I'm sure everybody has some version of. And all you're looking to do is get a little bit of buy-in here so you can get a clean read off that divide right down the middle. If the free safety plays them, you've got seam to dig combo and an under from the tailback here coming across. But all I'm trying to show here is that you can still use the same run set technique. You know, you short set them off, you're still showing run to that setup. Anytime the defenders feel like you're running, they're supposed to squeeze and play those run fits and not get upfield to rush the passer. So what I've experienced is there's more and more young offensive linemen who struggle with just straight pure pass drop back or pure kick sets, because it is a difficult thing to pick up, and the defensive linemen are getting stronger and faster every year. So you want to give them a few techniques to be able to protect themselves, and firing off the ball and then being able to redirect them back outside is another good way to set up in a pass protection scheme without having to just straight drop back and take all of these stunts, any type of blitzes that the defense will have. And if you're effective at running the ball at all, you're going to get some buy-in from the will and the mic. Okay. So with the last 8 minutes here, if there's any questions, I'd love to take them. But all of the plays I've shown you here are just off of things that are based off of the inside zone technique. And you can run them out of different formations. You can run them out of different sets. One of the things I wanted to show you guys was a quick, this is the call sheet that I would have on a game day. And so the things in black are the formations that we're going to use for that day. The purple is the different runs that we have. The blue or the green is quick game, the orange is pure drop back, and then the blue is kind of run pass options. So you can see, regardless if you know what these things mean, it doesn't matter. You can run inside zone out of all these different formations. So Texans was the inside zone I used at Laurier in Toronto. But Texans, you can run out of all these different sets. And from a offensive line, H-back, tailback perspective, they're all run the same. You're just in your mind making the calculations on how the defense will defend you and how do you want to attack the weaknesses that they have through the formations that you've installed. So whether it's in a bunch, whether it's in a double tight, which is what this is here, whether it's in a 23 set or an empty or whatever it is you want to use, on this play call sheet, what I would do is take a pen and check mark beside what I've run. So I can still run inside zone 12 to 15 times a game, but use it out of different formations so they never feel comfortable just lining up against 32 or 31. Okay. And so that way you get a lot more flexibility. It'll take a little bit more time installing the formations, but from a scheme perspective, you're still running inside zone, you're still doing all those things, and hopefully it'll help expand some of the things you're running on offense without putting the burden on the defense or on your guys to learn 6 or 7 or 8 different run plays. They can still have the base concept of inside zone. It can look a lot different to the defense, but you're not spending 8 practices just based on where to line up. How do you run a puller versus a inside zone versus a wide zone? Because they're all very different, and you don't have enough time in practice to be able to perfect all of them. So choose one, run play that you feel really confident that you want to run over and over again, and build all those things. Everything I showed you, you can run RPOs reading the end with a puller if you want to run power. You can run some of those same things off of wide zone. You can isolate who you want to read, all those different things, as long as you understand what it is that you want to run as your base concept first, and then build everything off of that one initial run. Okay. So my email's there if you want any of the slides, or if you have any questions that you might not have been able to ask in this setup or you're not comfortable with, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. But that's the bulk of the presentation that I have for today. So I'll be more than happy to talk with the last few minutes here. If there's anything anybody wants to discuss about offense in general.
Hey, Mark.
Yep.
When you talk about that, the exchange game between the end, basically the end and the will.
Yep.
Would it give you more fits? I mean, you look at alignment. Would it give you more fits if that will was lined up stacked head up, still at depth, and obviously he's gonna try to hesitate him, right? So would it give you more fits if that happened? It wasn't an automatic wrap.
Yeah. Anytime you get into a head technique or you get a stacked backer, it makes it difficult for the offensive lineman just because you don't know generally where the guys are going, whether some sort of blitz is on. It does add a little bit of a delay. The one thing that I like out of that sub motion, or that cross, I call it, where you're bringing them across, is it doesn't really matter at that point what your backer does. So one of the things that's always difficult for young offensive linemen is to be able to read it and then react. So you're right, Robbie, where if you stack the backer, it does make it tougher. But really, we're playing off of the fact that as a linebacker, if you see a certain run fit, certain teams, for example, if we're playing Western, they're so aggressive playing downhill to that inside zone technique that they show up pretty good. I think some of the other teams in our league are a little bit more patient, but with our offensive lineman, if we can get to that second level and have that little bit of indecision about whether you guys are exchanging or not, because most of the times it is an auto call where the will has to read the action and then make the exchange. Anytime we're getting linebackers thinking, it helps us out because we're playing downhill. So even if we do make the wrong call and block the backer and chase him, but he's stacked and not quite sure, trying to delay it, it does give us a chance to still gash one if the defense isn't playing downhill, which is the hardest thing in inside zone, is backers that can fill aggressively and get rid of those zone doubles. You're kind of stuck there. You're not getting any advantage on the line of scrimmage, and you're really playing in the defensive hands if you're just running straight inside zone play after play.
Awesome, thanks, Mark. Thanks. I got one more for you. With the quick, do you have any issues? Do you run into issues? Obviously, I mean, I can see possibly an issue if your crosser who's coming underneath to obviously influence the quick and the will. Is there any issues with that with regards to the crosser and the timing? Because if that quick gets kind of behind that tackle and is able to disrupt and create a pile closer to the B gap, I imagine that would kind of force your back to bounce, possibly.
Yeah, I think anytime you're using the crosser, and one of the things we always say is the ends are taught. If the tackle steps down, you chase the hip. That's one of the things that we tell our tackles. Anytime you're stepping down to the gap, the end's going to play tight to you. What the crosser does is influence the end to play even tighter, and he can't get to the mesh point. At that point, we feel like the quarterback has enough depth that they can get out on a diagonal away from the end. And we're teaching our crossers to fake the crack so that their hands go down and then slip across. So the description you described there, Robbie, where they're trying to create a pile up and just push it down, if we're reading that end, it actually helps us because the quarterback then can create a lot of distance between that end and the quarterback who's obviously pulled it and rolled to the left. So one of the things that you want to do as a coordinator is, if you're going to watch, certain teams will either play box technique or spill. So what we mean by that is, if anytime there's a crosser coming to a defensive end, if they're going to box it, they're going to try to keep everything inside the tackle boxes and really use that inside shoulder to crack that puller. Or if they're going to spill it, they're going to wrong arm the crosser. And so knowing which team likes to use which technique will help you decide as a play caller which version of the inside zone you're going to want to call. Whether it's a slip to the flat, whether it's a pure kick out, it all depends on how the defenses want to play you. But realistically, for me, all you're trying to do with any of that motion is get the linebackers to scrape or to motion or to communicate. Because the defensive line, if we can keep our offensive linemen on those zone doubles, it's always going to end up in positive yardage, whether we get to the backer or not. Tailbacks don't need a ton of space. They're super talented. And so once they get to that second level, you always feel like they're talented enough to get positive yardage. And so if we can really make sure that, we're not getting into trouble chasing too early, we can get movement on the defensive line. That's all you're looking for in the run game.
Awesome. Great explanation. Thanks, Mark.
Any other questions?
Mark, on your base inside zone, what's the footwork for the running backs? I know a lot of times, especially at the youth level, it can be especially out of the pistol formation.
Yeah, so we're actually going to slide step 2 with our outside foot. So let's say we're on the left hash, sliding to the right. We're going to slide laterally to our right, obviously work upfield with a cross on our left foot. On our third step, we want to be square to the line of scrimmage. So one of the biggest things we always tell our tailbacks on inside zone is we're going to use the outside foot of the guard as our aiming point. So we do have the lateral step, but we want to be able to be square to the line so we can see all the different versions of the cut options that we have. So where young guys get into trouble is once their shoulders are turned, your vision decreases on that cutback, or they just auto cut back thinking it's there. So one of the things you want to teach the backs if you get a chance is always stay square to the line and be slower to the hole to make the decision. But once you decide whether it's a front side or a backside cut, just go with what the natural ability is. So some of the tips you can use are obviously with the slide step, you want to wait for the catch before they start their motion because it'll slow them down. Generally, they'll be too quick and they can't read it and run in the backside of the offensive lineman. So one of the things you can do is that slide cross once they make the catch, just gives them a little more time to read it out as they go. But our big thing is you want to be square on that outside for the guard as you approach that first inside zone double.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Mark, if I can ask a quick question on, and that kind of builds on the previous question there, but with respect to minor football, if you're in a pistol, you showed a couple examples where you're running inside zone.
Yep. Oh,
I think we lost him.
yeah. Let's go get a question fire off in the chat if we can't hear you.
Must have lost him, yeah.
For the right, you had you had the quarterback open to the call and away from the call. Do you put any when inside zone in the quarterback? You have things that result in that is it doesn't have to be the call whether he's open to press, so the quarterback can read the backside end type of thing.
Yeah, so you cut off a little bit, but I think I know exactly what you're talking about. So
I'm just kind of wondering where you sit on that.
Yeah, when we go with like when you want to designate as a caller that you want to give it no matter what, and you're just gonna have an inside zone run, we're gonna open to the play side. So if we're running to the right, we're gonna tell the quarterback you're gonna open to 5 o'clock. You're gonna meet him on an angle. That's the part you're gonna see where it's an auto run. When you're gonna want to read, we always say that you're gonna open to the midline on the opposite of the run. So if you're running to the right, you're gonna open to the left, so you can read the quick or the will or all those kinds of things. Okay. So anytime it's a read, whether we're going to read a quick, we're going to read an end, we're going to read a will, whatever we're going to do, we're going to open to the opposite side of the run so we can read that particular player. Now, one of the things that smart defense will start to do is pick up on that. And anytime you work that, whether you're in a gun or a pistol, they'll pick up on those tendencies. So you're going to want to add an ugly call, we would call it, where we're going to open opposite to show like it's a read, but really it's a give. But generally, as a rule, you're going to always go to the play side as a quarterback when you're running inside zone, and you're going to open to the opposite side if you're going to run a read of any kind. And some teams like a gun set, some teams like the pistol. The reason I like the pistol out of the read is the quarterback doesn't have to find where the tailback is. They're already right behind, and they know they got to clear the midline. But also, it keeps the tailback shoulders already square. Your aiming point is a little bit tighter, so it'll be the outside foot of the center anytime you're going to read it. But for the quarterbacks, it just allows them to get comfortable catching and reaching with the football so that the mesh point can happen. One of the things that we always tell the tailbacks on any of our reads, it's the tailback's responsibility to find the mesh point because the quarterback can't find the tailback and make the read at the same time. So wherever the ball ends up, if you're going to make a read, it's the tailback who makes the adjustment and then works through the mesh so that the quarterback's comfortable making that give or pull read. Hopefully that was kind of speaks to what you were asking.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, you know what? Again, we want to thank you. Tremendous presentation on schemes and concepts, and thank you for taking the time out of, I know your busy schedule to present to the coaches and stuff. And next week, guys, we have Adam Grandy from Western. He's going to talk linebacker destruction play and stuff like that. So it's going to be a little bit defensive next week. But again, thank you very much. I hope you guys enjoyed this.
Thanks, Led. Appreciate everybody's time. And if you have an email, I'll be more than happy to answer any more questions you guys might have.